My daughter told me she was on her way. Just rest, Dad. I'll be there when you wake up. But I woke up alone. Hours passed. The nurse checked on me every half hour, her voice growing more concerned. I called. No answer. Finally, after 6 hours sitting on a hard bench with stitches in my side and a plastic bag of pain meds in my lap, I called her again. She picked up this time. Said, "I'm not your driver, Dad. Get an Uber." I hung up and didn't cry. I just opened my contacts and called my lawyer. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Comment below. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when she used to run to me, arms wide, screaming, "Daddy," like I was the center of her world. Her little fingers used to grip mine so tight it felt like she'd never let go. Back then, she was my whole reason for living. And after Marjorie died, well, she became my everything. I lost Marjorie when our daughter, Ellie, was just 6. Cancer. Quick and cruel. One day we were taking a walk after dinner, the next she was too tired to climb the stairs. 3 months later, I was holding her hand as she slipped away in that hospital bed, asking me to promise 2 things: don't let her forget me. And don't let her grow up angry. I tried, Marjorie. God knows I tried. I worked 2 jobs, one at the mill during the day, and janitorial at the school at night. Sleep became a luxury, but I made every ballet recital, every parent-teacher conference, every scraped knee. I'd be there in the front row, dust on my boots and calluses on my hands, clapping louder than anyone. Ellie used to call me her hero. I still remember her little drawings, stick figures of her and me, always holding hands, with a star over my head. One of them is still tucked in the back of my wallet. I guess I never stopped carrying it. Never stopped believing I was still that man to her. When she got older, she became smart, driven, just like her mother. I pushed her to study hard, and she made it into college on scholarship. I remember the way she cried when I handed her the savings account I'd built over the years, every birthday overtime, every bonus, every skipped lunch. "You shouldn't have," she whispered, hugging me tight. "It's for you," I said. "Everything's always been for you." She went off to college and met Nathan, clean-shaven, soft hands, shiny car. His family had money, old money, the kind that makes you speak differently, like you've never had to worry about bills or rusted pipes. I didn't care about that. What I cared about was how he looked at her, not with warmth, but calculation. Still, she said she loved him. And he was always polite, always courteous, but cold. The kind of man who shakes your hand like it's a transaction. I told myself I was being paranoid. That I just missed the days when she used to watch old westerns with me on the couch, her head on my shoulder. She got married in a big church ceremony. I walked her down the aisle. She wore Marjorie's locket. That part almost broke me. At the reception, Nathan raised a toast and said, "Now we begin a new chapter, building our own legacy." And I remember thinking, funny, because she already comes from one. They bought a house 2 cities over. Big place, white picket fence, 2 dogs, 2 kids. I visited often at first. I'd bring pies, tools, fix up their gutters. Always tried to stay useful. I didn't want to be a burden. But things started changing slowly. Subtle at first. She stopped returning my calls as quickly. Sometimes I'd get voicemail for days. I told myself it was the kids, the stress, the career. She worked in finance now. Nathan was in real estate. Their world spun fast, too fast for a man who still paid his bills at the post office and watched the news at 6. The real shift came the day I offered to help with the down payment for their second home, a lakeside place they'd had their eyes on. I had the savings. I'd been sitting on it for years, thinking maybe I'd fix the roof or replace the truck. She said thank you, hugged me, and then, that was it. No more visits. Calls dwindled. Suddenly, I only heard from her when they needed something. Can you watch the kids this weekend? Do you know a cheap contractor? Can I use your tax guy? I never said no. Never even hesitated. I just wanted to stay close. But looking back now, I wonder, was I just convenient? A walking tool belt? An open checkbook? Still, I clung to the good memories. I kept the fridge stocked with juice boxes for the grandkids, their photos on the mantel, coloring books in the closet. I still made 2 place settings when I ate dinner. Still looked out the window every Sunday afternoon, hoping her car might turn up the drive. You lie to yourself when you love someone. You pretend things are fine, that the distance is temporary, that they're just busy. But sometimes, that distance isn't an accident. Sometimes, it's a decision. I remember once, a few years ago, I had a bad fall while cleaning the gutters. Slipped and hit the ground hard, bruised ribs, dislocated shoulder. I called Ellie. Left a message. She texted me back 4 hours later. Sorry, at a conference. Hope you're okay. That was it. That was the first night I truly felt alone. Like I was just some side character in her life. Not the father who raised her through storms and hospital bills and the aching loneliness of widowhood. Not the man who once carried her on his shoulders because she was afraid of the crowd. Just an obligation. Maybe even an embarrassment. Still, I kept showing up. Kept being Dad. Because that's what you do when you love someone more than your own pride. But even love has limits. And mine was about to break. The signs didn't come all at once. They came slow, like rust, quiet, unnoticed, until one day the whole frame's brittle and falling apart. The first time I felt it, really felt it, was at Ellie's youngest son's birthday party. He was turning 4. I showed up early with a box of toys I'd picked out myself, trains and puzzles, things that reminded me of the ones Ellie used to play with. I figured I'd set them up in the living room, maybe help with balloons like I used to when she was little. But when I got there, Nathan opened the door and blinked like I wasn't expected. "Oh," he said flatly, "you're early." He didn't invite me in. Just stepped aside. Inside, their house looked like something out of a catalog, sleek, white, modern. Not a speck of clutter or life. The kids were in the backyard with a nanny I'd never met. Ellie was in the kitchen, on her phone, wearing one of those Bluetooth earpieces like she was about to close a deal. She looked up and smiled, or something like a smile. "Hi, Dad," she said, and gave me a half hug. "Can you put that stuff in the garage?" "The garage?" I asked. "Yeah, we'll go through it later," she said quickly, already walking away. Nathan's got a system with the kids' toys now. I stood there for a second, holding the box like a delivery man who'd shown up to the wrong address. I ended up placing it in the garage next to a stack of unopened Amazon boxes. It sat there for months. I know because the next time I visited, it was still there, untouched, still taped shut. Another time, I tried to fix their broken mailbox. It was leaning, rusted at the base. Simple job. I brought my tools, some concrete, figured I'd surprise them. Nathan came outside, arms crossed. "You don't have to do that," he said. "It's no trouble," I replied. "It's dangerous for the kids if it falls." "We have a guy," he said. "It's fine." That guy never came. The mailbox stayed crooked for weeks. But I got the message loud and clear. I was no longer someone they needed. I was tolerated. A relic from a past they were trying to distance themselves from. Ellie stopped calling for small things. Instead, her calls came only when she needed help, babysitting last minute, wiring money during temporary shortfalls, picking up medicine for Nathan's mother when her own family couldn't make it. And the way she asked changed, too. It used to be soft, kind. Do you think you could help, Dad? But over time it became transactional. I need you to do something for me. Like I was an employee. A backup plan. I should have said no more often. But I didn't. I told myself it was just a phase. That all children grow distant. That she was juggling motherhood, marriage, a career. But one night, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I had just dropped off her oldest at piano practice and was driving home when I realized my wallet was gone. I'd had it in the car, I was sure of it. I called Ellie, told her I might have left it on her kitchen counter. She sighed, annoyed. Can you check when you get home? I don't think it's here. I tried to explain I hadn't gone anywhere else. That it had to be there. She cut me off. I'm really busy right now, Dad. Can't this wait until tomorrow? It was the way she said Dad, clipped and impatient, like a chore. I hung up. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the spot where her mother used to drink her tea. I remember thinking, she wouldn't recognize Ellie now. It wasn't just the missed birthdays or rushed conversations anymore. It was the tone. The coldness. The way she spoke over me now, like my thoughts were clutter to be cleared. And Nathan, he never even pretended to hide his disdain anymore. He once made a joke at a family dinner, old folks should come with an expiration date. Everyone laughed. Even Ellie. She caught herself and looked at me quickly, then away. I laughed too, quietly. But something broke in me that night. I started noticing more. They never offered me a seat at the table unless there was a spare. My Christmas gift one year was a blanket with a missing tag, re-gifted, I'm certain. And Ellie no longer called to ask how I was doing. Only what I could do. But the most painful moment came one afternoon when I stopped by unannounced. I had made a batch of Marjorie's cinnamon rolls. Thought I'd surprise the grandkids. I stood on the porch holding the tray, smiling. Nathan opened the door, took one look, and said, "Next time, can you call first? We're not really doing surprise visits anymore." Ellie appeared behind him, silent. I handed them the tray. Just wanted to bring a little something. Nathan didn't even say thank you. Just took it, closed the door gently but firmly. I stood on that porch for a few seconds, hearing the muffled voices and laughter inside. Then I turned and walked back to my truck. That's when the realization began to settle in, quiet and sharp. I didn't have a place in their lives anymore. Not as a father. Not as a helper. Not as anything. They didn't see me as family. Just someone to manage. And I began to wonder, was all this distance a slow drift? Or had they pushed me off the shore, hoping I wouldn't find my way back? It happened on a Sunday. Funny how pain doesn't need a dramatic stage, it just shows up in the middle of something ordinary. I'd been dealing with this stubborn ache in my side for weeks. At first, I ignored it. I've worked through worse, busted knees, frozen shoulders, slipped discs. Comes with the years, right? But this was different. Sharp. Deep. Finally, my neighbor Joyce, sweet woman, younger than me but always mothering everyone, insisted I get it checked out. Turns out it was my appendix. Needed minor surgery. Nothing serious, they said. In and out same day. Before going in, I called Ellie. Told her what was happening. "Oh, are you sure it's necessary?" she asked. "Well, the doctors seem to think so." She sighed. "Okay. Do you need me to take you?" No, I said quickly. "I've got a ride in with Joyce. I'd need someone to bring me home after." A pause. Then, "All right. Just text me when you're done, okay?" She sounded annoyed. I told myself I was imagining it. The surgery went fine. They wheeled me into recovery and said I'd be discharged by early evening. I texted Ellie just like she asked. No response. I waited. And waited. Nurses came by every half hour. Still waiting, they'd ask. I nodded, smiling like it didn't hurt. Like I wasn't embarrassed. Like I hadn't promised my daughter would be there. After 3 hours, one nurse pulled up a chair. Do you have any other family we can call? No, I said quietly. Just her. They offered to call a cab. I shook my head. Said I'd wait. After 6 hours, I gave up. I called again. This time, she answered. Her voice was distracted. I could hear clinking dishes and laughter in the background. Dad? Hey, I said, trying not to sound as tired as I felt. I'm ready to go. A pause. Then she said it, cold, flat, like a slap. I'm not your driver, Dad. Can't you just call an Uber? I didn't respond right away. Ellie, I finally said, I just had surgery. I know, she snapped. But Nathan made dinner plans. I can't just drop everything. Dinner plans. Dinner plans were more important than me sitting on a hard bench with stitches and hospital socks, trying not to wince when I stood. I see, I said. She didn't say anything else. Just hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling more hollow than I ever had. I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I didn't even get angry. Instead, I called Joyce. Told her not to worry, I'd figure something out. Then I called someone else. My lawyer, Harold. Everything all right? He asked, concerned. I need to talk about the will, I said. That was all. He understood. I eventually took a rideshare home. Driver was young, polite. Didn't ask questions when I moved slowly or winced getting in. Just drove in silence. When I got home, I didn't even make it to the couch. I sat down on the front step, still holding the hospital bag, and just breathed. The sky was turning orange. The cicadas were loud. Somewhere in the distance, kids were laughing. And I sat there, realizing that I had no place in my daughter's life. Not even when I needed her the most. That night, I left her a voicemail. Calm. Short. Thanks for the ride suggestion. Hope dinner was good. I didn't expect a response. I didn't get one. But something in me shifted after that. The kind of shift you don't come back from. The next week, I dropped off a toy for my grandson's birthday. I didn't stay. I didn't ring the bell. I just left it on the porch and drove away. The next Sunday, I didn't call. I went fishing alone. Caught nothing. Didn't matter. The silence was easier than pretending. But the betrayal didn't end with that phone call. No, the worst came 2 weeks later, when I ran into an old friend at the grocery store. Hey, he said, I heard you're moving into assisted living. That true? I blinked. Come again? Ellie told my wife. Said you were downsizing and looking at that place near the freeway. I stood there in the bread aisle, feeling like the floor had shifted under me. No, I said. That's news to me. He looked confused. Oh, well, maybe I got it wrong. But he hadn't. Because 3 days later, a real estate flyer showed up in my mailbox, addressed to me, offering a cash offer for your home and seamless transition into senior housing. The flyer listed my address. My full name. I didn't say anything at first. I just went into my office, pulled open the bottom drawer, and took out the folder I hadn't touched since Marjorie passed. The one labeled Legacy. I opened it. And started making a list. I kept that flyer on my kitchen table for days. Didn't throw it out. Didn't touch it. Just looked at it. Sometimes while eating breakfast. Sometimes while drinking coffee in silence. It sat there like a loud whisper, confirmation that something had been happening behind my back. I didn't confront Ellie. Not yet. I wanted to see how far the rot went. I started paying closer attention. Checked my mail more carefully, looked through my bank statements, scrolled through voicemails I'd saved. And that's when I noticed it, 3 withdrawals from one of my smaller accounts. Not huge amounts, but strange. I'd only used that account for savings, set it up decades ago with Marjorie. It was meant to be left untouched. I called the bank. The voice on the line was polite. "Those transactions were authorized via your online profile," she said. "I don't have an online profile," I replied. She paused. "Then someone set one up in your name." That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat in my office with a notepad and pen. I started listing things, all the moments I'd dismissed as stress, confusion, or accidents. Ellie asking if I had a power of attorney in place, just in case. Nathan suggesting I look into retirement communities, a few months ago. The sudden appearance of that real estate flyer. The quiet way Ellie had taken over paying the property taxes, to make it easier. The change in her tone when I mentioned wanting to stay in my home for good. This wasn't just distance anymore. It wasn't even coldness. It was a plan. And I wasn't part of it. Late that night, I opened the top drawer of my dresser. Inside, buried under a stack of old birthday cards and receipts, was a small box. It held a stack of letters, all from Marjorie. Some were written before we got married. Others during the years she battled cancer. But one, near the bottom, was dated 3 weeks before she passed. It was short. Just a few lines. But I read it 3 times. "If something ever happens, and Ellie changes, don't let love blind you. Protect what we built. Protect yourself." She had seen something in our daughter, even back then. That letter broke something open in me. Not anger. Not revenge. Just clarity. I wasn't going crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was being replaced. Quietly. Neatly. 2 days later, I went to the storage unit I hadn't touched in years. Pulled out Marjorie's old file cabinet. Inside were deeds, insurance documents, our original wills, all the paperwork of a life built from nothing. I brought it home. Spent the evening sorting every document, organizing everything I might need if this went further. Then I called Harold, my lawyer. "I need to update some things," I told him. He didn't ask questions. Just gave me a time. Before I went to see him, though, I made one more stop, at Ellie's house. Not to confront her. Just to observe. She didn't know I was coming. I parked down the street and waited. After half an hour, I saw her step outside. She was laughing, dressed up, holding a glass of wine. Nathan came out behind her, wrapping his arm around her waist. They looked like a magazine couple, picture perfect. I watched as their kids ran around the yard, screaming and laughing. I used to be part of that chaos. Used to be the one pushing them on the swings, fixing their toys, patching their scraped knees. Now I was watching from a car. She didn't look like someone grieving the slow disappearance of her father. She looked relieved. That cut deeper than anything. On my way home, I checked my voicemail. I'd missed a call from her earlier that day. I hit play, expecting another request. But what I heard made my stomach turn. She must have thought she hung up. There was background noise, laughter, clinking plates. Then her voice, clear as day. "He'll be fine. It's not like he's got much time left anyway. Nathan says the market's good right now, we should get the paperwork started before winter hits." A short pause. Then, laughter. My breath caught. I replayed it just to be sure. It wasn't a mistake anymore. It was a scheme. Cold. Calculated. Cruel. And they weren't even hiding it now. I saved the voicemail. Backed it up on a flash drive. Then another. When I got home, I stood in the hallway for a long while, staring at the framed photo of Marjorie on the wall. Her eyes always looked like they were keeping secrets, soft ones, but wise. "I hear you now," I whispered. "I should have listened sooner." Then I pulled out a fresh folder, labeled it New Will, and placed it on my desk. Not out of spite. Not out of revenge. Out of necessity. Because love doesn't mean letting someone drain you dry. And family? Family doesn't lie behind your back while you're still healing from surgery. Speech balloon. Have you ever felt betrayed by your own family? Let us know in the comments. I waited a week before I said anything. Not because I was unsure, no, that voicemail played in my mind every night like clockwork. I waited because I wanted to see if she'd bring it up herself. Maybe admit to the planning, to the lies. Maybe even apologize. But nothing came. No call. No visit. Not even a text. So I decided to give her a chance. I called Ellie on a quiet Tuesday morning and asked if I could stop by. She hesitated but said, "Sure, I guess." Like it was a favor she didn't really want to grant. When I pulled into their driveway, Nathan's car was gone. Just hers sat there, spotless as ever. The same silver SUV I'd helped her pick out 5 years ago, when she was pregnant with their second. Back when she still called me Dad with warmth. She met me at the door wearing business casual and holding her phone. "Sorry, I've got a Zoom in 20, but what's up?" "Won't take long," I said, stepping inside. The house smelled like candles and disinfectant. Cold. Immaculate. Not a single photo of me anywhere, though I counted 3 pictures of Nathan's parents in the living room alone. We sat on opposite ends of the couch. She glanced at her phone every few seconds. "I wanted to talk about something," I began. She crossed her legs, waiting. "I found some bank activity I didn't authorize. And I got a real estate flyer addressed to me." Then I heard a voicemail. "One you left by accident." Her eyes flinched, just slightly. "I don't know what you mean," she said, too quickly. "I think you do." She stared at me for a second. Then leaned back and gave a laugh, light and dismissive. "Dad, you're being paranoid. Nobody's trying to do anything to you." "Really?" I pulled the flyer from my coat pocket. "Then how did this end up in my mailbox? Or those funds disappear from my account?" She went quiet. I waited. "You're getting older," she said finally. "You've forgotten stuff before. Maybe you just authorized it and didn't realize." Gaslighting. A word I never really understood until that moment. "I'm old, not senile," I said calmly. "And that voicemail wasn't a misunderstanding. You said, and I quote, 'He won't last long anyway.'" She went pale. "That was taken out of context." "There's no context where that's okay, Ellie." She stood then, pacing a little. "Okay, fine. Maybe I said that. But you don't understand how hard it's been. Nathan and I have bills, the kids need stuff, and you live alone in a house you barely maintain." "I built that house," I said sharply. "I laid every beam with your mother." She stopped mid-step. "This isn't about the house," I continued. "This is about you thinking you've earned something you haven't." "Oh, come on, Dad. You've given us things for years. Why stop now? Why make a big deal about?" "Because there's a difference between generosity and theft." That silenced her. I stood. "I'm not here to beg or argue. I'm here to tell you that I've seen enough. I've changed my will. You're no longer in it. She blinked. What? I've protected the house. The assets. Everything. If anyone contests it, it goes to charity. Dad, you can't be serious. I am. She moved toward me, trying to soften her voice. You're acting emotionally. Don't throw everything away over one misunderstanding. Misunderstandings don't have paper trails. And they don't sound like strategy meetings caught on voicemail. Her lips tightened. Nathan said this might happen. That stopped me. What do you mean? He said you'd get suspicious once we started the paperwork. That you'd get defensive. Stubborn. Started the paperwork? So it's not just talk. She hesitated. That was all I needed. Goodbye, Ellie. I walked out. She didn't follow. Outside, a light breeze rustled the trees. I took a deep breath and felt something strange. Relief. Later that week, my neighbor Joyce stopped by with a casserole. She sat with me on the porch, sipping iced tea, listening as I told her everything, the flyer, the voicemail, the confrontation. She didn't interrupt. Just listened. When I finished, she placed a hand on my arm. You didn't deserve that, she said. I know. You're not alone. It was the first time someone had said that to me without it feeling like pity. A few days after that, the mailman, Gary, a quiet Vietnam vet I'd spoken with on and off for years, handed me my letters and said, "Heard what happened with your daughter. Word travels in small towns." He looked at me for a second, then nodded. Good for you. And just like that, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in months. Steady. Clear. Not angry. Not broken. Just grounded. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to scheme. I was going to protect what was mine, with dignity. And if they thought I was just going to fade quietly into the background, they were going to learn something real soon. This old man still had some fight left in him. Harold's office smelled like old wood and fresh coffee. Same as it always had. Same as it did when Marjorie and I first sat across from him, 30 years ago, signing our original will. Back then, we were a pair of wide-eyed young parents, building a life brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. Now it was just me. Harold looked up when I entered, his lined face softening into something between concern and respect. He stood, shook my hand firmly, and gestured for me to sit. I was hoping this day wouldn't come, he said quietly. I nodded. So was I. We got down to it. No small talk. No stalling. I handed him the papers I'd organized, bank statements, property deeds, proof of ownership, that cursed flyer from the real estate vultures. He looked them over, expression tightening with every page. I've also got a recording, I said, and handed him the flash drive. He didn't play it right away. Just slipped it into a drawer and said, "That'll be enough." I watched him begin drafting the changes. His fingers moved slower than they used to, but with the same precision. I remembered when he helped us write the original will. Marjorie had insisted we include provisions for Ellie's education, even if we passed early. She's going to be someone, she'd said back then. We have to make sure she gets the chance. And she did become someone. Just not the someone we hoped for. I want the house placed in a protective trust, I said now. She can't sell it. She can't claim it. No one can, unless they lived here and cared for it. Harold nodded. We'll lock it in airtight. I want everything else, savings, stocks, the truck, going to the charity Marjorie used to volunteer for. Unless the will is contested. He looked up at that. If contested? Then all of it, and I mean all of it, goes to that same charity. Every cent. A smile flickered at the edge of his mouth. You sure? I nodded. She needs to learn that betrayal comes with a price. We went over the documents line by line. It took hours. I initialed every page, signed the final one with a steady hand. When I finished, Harold slid the folder toward me. "Done," he said. I stared at it. That folder felt heavier than it should have. "Feels wrong," I admitted. "Feels like I'm burying her alive." He didn't respond right away. Just leaned back and let the silence sit with us. "You're not," he said eventually. "You're protecting yourself. Protecting what you built." I nodded. "Still hurts, though." He poured us both a glass of water. "You're a good man, Walt. This isn't about spite. It's about setting boundaries." She made her choice. "Yeah," I said. "Now I've made mine." On the way out, I paused by the office door. Harold looked up. "What are you going to do next?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Breathe, I guess." He smiled. "That's a good start." Driving home, the sky was low and gray. Rain threatened but never came. I took the long way back, past the elementary school where I used to pick Ellie up every afternoon. Her little pink backpack always bouncing as she ran toward me. She used to reach for my hand without thinking. Without hesitation. Now, I wasn't sure she'd take it if I offered it again. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat in the truck for a while. The house loomed quiet behind me, old, creaky, full of ghosts. But it was mine. And I wasn't going anywhere. I walked inside, placed the new will in the safe, and locked it with a finality I hadn't felt in years. Then I did something I hadn't done in a long while. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled out a pen and paper, and wrote a letter. Not to Ellie. Not to Harold. To Marjorie. Dear Marjorie. You were right. She changed. And I let it happen for too long. I kept hoping, kept bending. But today, I stopped. I protected our home. Our legacy. The life we built. I don't know if that makes me strong or just tired. But I know I'm doing this the way you would have wanted, with dignity. With love, even if it hurts. I miss you every day. But today, I felt you with me. Thank you for the warning. I heard you. I listened. And I'm still here, love. Still standing. Walt. I folded the letter and placed it behind her photo on the mantel. And for the first time in months, I exhaled. Not from exhaustion. But from peace that I thought I'd already been through the worst of it. That signing the will was the emotional peak. That I could finally rest. But then they crossed a line I didn't even know I had left. It started with a knock at the door. It was mid-morning. I was in the shed sanding an old picture frame when I heard it. Not rushed, not frantic. Just 3 polite taps. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked over. Standing on my porch was a stranger in a navy blue blazer and shiny shoes, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Whitmore?" he asked. "That's me. I'm Jonathan Marks, from Oakline Real Estate. I'm here for the walkthrough." My stomach dropped. "The what?" "The walkthrough. Your daughter scheduled it," he said with a trained smile. "She mentioned the house would be vacant soon." I stared at him. For a second, I couldn't speak. Then I said, slow and cold, "You were misinformed." He hesitated. "Oh. I see. So, you're not planning to move?" I didn't answer that. Just pointed to the gate. "You can leave now." He looked like he wanted to say more, but thought better of it. As he walked back to his car, clipboard in hand, I shut the door and locked it behind me. I didn't move. Didn't sit. Didn't blink. They had sent someone. To my house. Without telling me. with full confidence that I'd just be gone. That wasn't just disrespect. That was erasure. And that's when I knew they truly believed this home was already theirs. I called Ellie. No answer. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I sat down with a pen and a legal pad, and I began writing out every detail of what had just happened. Then I went to the safe, pulled out a copy of the new will, and tucked a letter inside it explaining the real estate visit. When I was done, I picked up Marjorie's photo and stared at it. I've had enough, I told her. The next morning, I packed a folder with documents, the real estate flyer, the voicemail transcript, photos of the unauthorized mailer, even screenshots of missed calls. I made 3 copies. One for Harold. One for the records. One for me. Then I ironed my shirt, cleaned my boots, and stared at myself in the mirror longer than usual. I looked tired. Older than I remembered. But there was steel in my eyes that hadn't been there in a long while. It was time to finish this. I didn't have a dramatic plan. I didn't need one. I had the truth. And that was enough. 2 days later, I got the final push I didn't know I needed. I received a letter from a care facility on the outskirts of town. Addressed to me. A welcome packet. It had brochures, pricing, even a note that read, "We're excited to meet you. Your family shared your health history and preferences with us to ensure a smooth transition." That was it. No more waiting. No more hoping she'd come around. It was time for everyone to know exactly what kind of people I was dealing with. I called my old friend Peter, who ran the community center downtown. "Is that Veterans Day fundraiser dinner still happening?" "Sure is," he said. "You coming?" "I am," I replied. "And I've got a few things I need to say." That dinner would become a turning point. A night no one would forget. But I wasn't going there to make a scene. I was going to reclaim my name. To reclaim my dignity. To look the people I'd known for 40 years in the eye and let them know, I wasn't confused. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being erased by my own child. And I was done pretending otherwise. The community center was packed. Folding chairs in neat rows, plastic tablecloths, the scent of overcooked green beans and sweet tea in the air. It looked the same as it always had, humble, familiar. A place where folks came together, not to impress, but to belong. Ellie and Nathan were already there when I arrived. They didn't see me right away. Ellie was laughing with one of the town council members, her voice high and sweet, like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. Nathan stood beside her, wearing a navy sport coat and that smug smile he always wore when he thought he'd won something. I greeted a few neighbors, shook hands, accepted some surprised hugs. I could feel the stares. They hadn't seen me out in weeks. Not since the hospital incident. "Good to see you, Walt," someone said. "Was wondering how you've been." "Better now," I said with a small nod. The dinner started like usual, pledges, speeches, a local student sang a shaky rendition of the anthem. I sat near the front, folder resting on my lap, steady as stone. I didn't touch the food. When Peter took the stage and thanked everyone for coming, he looked down at me and gave the smallest of nods. I stood. "Mind if I say a few words?" I asked. He handed me the mic without hesitation. The room quieted. Forks paused mid-air. Chairs shifted. Even Ellie, now noticing me, straightened in her seat. I didn't look at her yet. I looked out at the crowd. People I'd known for decades. People who came to my wife's funeral. People who'd eaten at my table, borrowed my tools, watched Ellie grow up. "My name's Walter Whitmore," I began. "Most of you know me. Some of you knew my wife, Marjorie. We built our home on Mayfield Lane with our bare hands. We raised our daughter there. I worked the mill, the night shift, did all the things a man's supposed to do to keep a roof over his family's head. I paused. I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here because I want to tell you what happens when you're no longer convenient to your own blood. You could feel the shift in the room. Postures straightened. Conversations froze. 3 weeks ago, after surgery, I waited at the hospital for 6 hours. My daughter, the same girl I held through every fever, every skinned knee, told me she couldn't come. That I should call an Uber. Gasps. Murmurs. I glanced in Ellie's direction, but didn't stop. She and her husband have been working, quietly, methodically, to remove me from my home. They spoke to real estate agents. Set up appointments. Gave my medical information to a care facility without my knowledge. Now I look directly at Ellie. And all this while smiling to my face, calling me Dad. Pretending they cared. She stood, eyes wide. Dad, this isn't the place. It is exactly the place, I said, calm but firm. You used to call me your hero. Now I'm just a name on a deed. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket and held it up. This has a voicemail you left, Ellie. Saying I wouldn't last long anyway. You remember that? She paled. Don't worry. I made copies. I turned back to the room. I've rewritten my will. The house is protected. The assets are gone. If anyone tries to contest it, everything goes to the charity Marjorie loved most. They'll build something good with it. Something real. I didn't yell. Didn't shake. I just spoke. Plain. Honest. Tired. When I finished, I placed the mic down and walked out. Didn't look back. Outside, the air was cooler than expected. Crisp. Clean. I took a deep breath, staring up at the dark sky, stars barely peeking through the city haze. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Peter. He didn't say anything at first. Just handed me a cup of coffee from the refreshment table. You all right? He asked. I will be. He nodded. Took guts, Walt. Most folks would have just faded out. I'm done fading, I said. Ellie didn't follow me out. Neither did Nathan. I imagined them inside, trying to spin the story, explain it away. Let them. The people in that room weren't fools. And neither was I. That night, I went home, kicked off my boots, and sat in the living room with Marjorie's photo on my lap. I did it, love, I whispered. I finally said what needed to be said. Speech balloon brain, do you think the father made the right choice? Comment and don't forget to like and subscribe for more true life stories. The silence afterward wasn't what I expected. No storm of calls. No apology. No confrontation. Just nothing. 3 days passed, then a week. The phone didn't ring. No knocks at the door. No emails, no texts. It was as if Ellie and Nathan had vanished from my world completely. Or maybe they had chosen to shut the door, to pretend it never happened. That part hurt more than I expected. You spend a lifetime loving someone, and when they're finally exposed, laid bare in front of everyone, they don't come running. They don't ask why. They don't even try to lie their way back. They just disappear. I kept checking the mailbox every morning like habit. There were bills, catalogs, a few letters from the veterans group, but nothing with her name on it. I'd stare at the kitchen table during breakfast, half expecting to see one of those school art projects my grandkids used to bring me. They used to draw me as a cowboy, a superhero, once even a dragon. That stopped a while ago, long before the confrontation. Maybe they were told not to bother. Maybe I was already gone in their minds. The town, though, that was different. Within days, word spread. I couldn't walk into the hardware store or the diner without someone pulling me aside. You did the right thing, Walt. Wish I'd had the guts to do what you did with my nephew. You taught us something. Boundaries don't make you a bad parent. They meant well. And part of me appreciated it. But I didn't want to be some small-town legend. I just wanted peace. The loneliness settled in like an old coat. Familiar, heavy. I'd walk the perimeter of the property every afternoon, just like I used to when Marjorie was alive. She always liked those strolls. Said it helped her hear the house breathe. Sometimes I'd pause by the rosebush she planted the summer before Ellie was born. It's still there, hanging on. The blooms are smaller now, but determined. Just like her. A week after the fundraiser dinner, Joyce stopped by again. She brought cornbread and sweet tea and didn't ask permission, just let herself in like she used to before things got heavy. You holding up? She asked as we sat on the porch. I nodded. Trying. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the crickets. Then she looked at me. Have you thought about what comes next? Next? Yeah. You've defended the house. Now what do you do with it? I hadn't really thought that far. I just wanted to protect it, I said. Well, it's protected. So maybe now it's time to give it new life. That idea stuck with me. After she left, I walked through every room in the house, slowly, deliberately. I took in the creaks of the floorboards, the worn-down spots on the stair rail, the kitchen window smudged with years of grandkid fingerprints. The place was full of life. It just wasn't full of people anymore. That night, I dug through an old chest in the attic. Found a stack of Marjorie's notebooks. She used to dream up all sorts of things, community programs, neighborhood potlucks, after-school clubs. In one, dated 1994, she wrote, "One day, when the house is too big for just us, I want to open it to others. Women leaving shelters, kids aging out of the system. This house could be a home for more than just our family." I ran my fingers over the faded ink. That's when the seed took root. A few days later, someone did come visit. But it wasn't Ellie. It was my granddaughter, Lily, the oldest of the two. 15 now, I think. Taller, quiet like her mother used to be when she was that age. She rode her bike right up the driveway, helmet still strapped under her chin. I was outside, pruning the hedge. She startled me. "Hi, Grandpa," she said. "Lily?" I blinked. "You all right?" She shrugged. "Mom doesn't know I'm here." I set the shears down and invited her in. Made us lemonade. We sat in the living room. She looked around slowly, her eyes landing on every photo, every dusty book she used to flip through when she was small. "I saw the video," she said quietly. "Video?" "Someone posted it from the fundraiser." "You talking?" My heart clenched. "You shouldn't have had to say all that," she whispered. "Not in front of everyone." "I had to," I said. "No one else was going to tell the truth." She nodded. Her eyes glassy. "I miss coming here." I swallowed. "You're always welcome." "I know," she said. Then after a pause, "Mom says you're mad at her." "I'm disappointed," I corrected gently. "That's different." She nodded again. Then stood, pulling something from her backpack. It was a photo. A drawing, actually. Of the house. But this time, it had more windows. More people drawn inside. Smiling. "I had a dream," she said, shyly. "That this place could be big again. Like, not just for us. But for people who need it." I looked at her for a long time. Then smiled. "You and your grandma had the same dream," I said. That was the moment something shifted inside me. A new idea forming. A new purpose. And for the first time in months, I felt something stir where all that anger used to sit. Hope. After Lily left, I sat on the porch for a long time with that drawing in my hands. The house she sketched looked just like mine, same chimney, same front steps, same crooked fence, but it was alive. Colored windows, music notes coming from the attic, smiling faces in every room. It looked like hope. I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. That this place could be big again, not just for us. Marjorie would have wept hearing that. So I started making calls. The first was to Harold, not for legal advice, but a contact. He used to do pro bono work for shelters in town, and I knew he kept ties with local nonprofits. He gave me the number of a woman named Sylvia who ran a small organization for young adults aging out of the foster system. Said they were always looking for stable housing and transition spaces, somewhere between chaos and adulthood. I called her the next day. We met that weekend. She was sharp, kind-eyed, and practical, the kind of person who carried a clipboard but spoke like a friend. When I gave her the tour of the house, she didn't pretend. "It's got great bones," she said. "A little creaky, but warm." I laughed. "Describes me, too." She looked around thoughtfully, taking notes. This could work. 2 upstairs bedrooms for staff, 3 for residents. Big kitchen. Outdoor space. It wouldn't feel like a facility. It would feel like home. That word hit me in the chest. Home. "Let's make it happen," I told her. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity I hadn't felt in years. Contractors came in to check wiring and plumbing. Volunteers from the nonprofit stopped by to help repaint the walls, bright yellows, soft blues, nothing sterile. I donated Marjorie's old china hutch to the new shared dining room, along with her favorite rocking chair. It would sit by the window, just like she used to. I cleared out boxes from the attic. Turned the den into a reading room. Hauled out old rugs, rolled in fresh ones. Every corner of the house began to breathe again. It was healing me, too, the act of doing, of preparing, of building something not just for people, but with them. One afternoon, I caught myself humming in the kitchen while laying out tools. It had been a long time since I hummed anything. Lily came by often. She helped paint murals in the hallways, using colors her grandma would have loved, soft purples, garden greens. She even brought a few friends from school to help clean up the backyard. "This is your legacy," she said one day, wiping paint from her hands. "No," I said, smiling. "It's ours." I could see the pride in her eyes, not the kind that comes from money or status, but from doing something good. Something real. Word of the transformation spread fast. Neighbors dropped off furniture, books, even boxes of board games. One woman donated quilts her mother had made. Another brought flower pots. People came together in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not because they owed me, but because they believed in the idea. Because it felt right. One evening, as I stood at the edge of the yard watching the porch light flicker on, Joyce walked up with 2 glasses of lemonade. "You did it," she said, handing me one. "Not alone." "No. But you led it." She looked around the property. The fresh paint. The laughter coming from inside. A group of volunteers were playing cards at the dining table. Music played faintly from a speaker someone had left on the steps. "This house feels different," she said. "Feels like it used to," I replied. "Before everything got complicated." She nodded. "Maybe it's not about going backward. Maybe it's about choosing what kind of future you want to shape." I looked at her and smiled. I'm starting to believe that. The nonprofit gave the project an official name, Marjorie's House. Sylvia said it with reverence when she printed the first pamphlet. "I hope that's all right," she added. I had to step outside when she said it. Not because I was upset. But because I couldn't stop the tears. Not the loud kind. Just the kind that roll slow and quiet, like something old finally leaving your chest. And Ellie? She never reached out. Never asked about the house, the fundraiser, the confrontation. Nathan didn't either. I suppose they'd written me off as a bitter old man with too many papers and not enough time left. Let them. I'd made peace with the silence. Because I no longer needed their version of family. I had my own now. Not by blood. But by choice. The first resident arrived on a Wednesday. Her name was Tessa. 19. Small frame, wary eyes, clutching a duffel bag that looked heavier than it should have. Sylvia introduced us gently. Tessa, this is Mr. Whitmore. He owns the house. Built it with his wife. Tessa nodded, barely looking up. Hi. I smiled. You can call me Walt. Or grumpy old man. Either works. She almost smiled. Almost. Sylvia showed her to the room upstairs, the one Marjorie used to call the sunny corner. I'd painted it a soft yellow and placed a bookshelf by the window. I heard Tessa say, quietly, I've never had my own room before. I stood in the hallway after that, my hand on the doorframe, heart aching in a new way. A good way. Over the next month, more came. Marcus, 22, quiet but kind. Wanted to be a mechanic, always fiddling with things. Fixed the loose screen door without being asked. Jade, 18, worked late nights and brought home leftover bagels for everyone. Aaron, 21, full of nervous energy, always apologizing for things he hadn't done. It took him 2 weeks to stop asking permission to sit on the couch. They came in with bruises, not always the kind you could see, and they softened slowly, like frost melting off a window in spring. And I changed, too. I stopped waking up dreading the silence. Now, I'd hear the kettle boiling, someone laughing at the kitchen table, music thumping faintly behind a closed door. The house was alive again. Not loud. Not chaotic. Just full. Lily came by every weekend. She painted a mural in the hallway with one of the girls, sunflowers and open sky. She started calling it our house instead of Grandpa's. One Saturday, I found her sitting on the front steps with Aaron, both sipping lemonade, talking about music. She smiled when she saw me. I think Grandma would like this, she said. She would have baked everyone cookies by now, I replied. Aaron chuckled. I'd like your grandma. You'd love her, I said softly. We all did. One afternoon, we had a big Sunday dinner. Everyone pitched in. Jade made pasta. Marcus grilled in the backyard. Joyce brought cobbler. Even Sylvia stopped by with her daughter and a pie. We sat around the long dining table, mismatched chairs, plates of food, second helpings already being passed. It felt like Thanksgiving, but warmer. More real. I raised a glass. To second chances, I said. To Marjorie, Lily added. To home, said Tessa, her voice small but steady. We clinked glasses. No speeches. Just smiles. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a man holding on to memories. I felt like someone who'd built something new. Of course, there were hard days, too. Aaron had a panic attack one night. I sat with him on the back porch, handing him water, saying nothing until his breathing slowed. Marcus broke down when his old foster mother called to ask for money. I told him he didn't owe anyone anything just because they shared history. And Tessa had nights when she'd sit in the kitchen staring out the window, eyes distant. Bad thoughts? I asked once. She nodded. You can say them out loud here, I said. Doesn't make them bigger. Just lighter. She didn't answer, but the next night, she left me a note, "Thanks for not treating me like I'm broken." I kept that note in my drawer. Right next to Marjorie's last letter. The house grew into its new name. People started calling it Marjorie's house like it had always been that way. We held small events, garden days, movie nights, community brunches. Neighbors came by with donations, old furniture, even time. They'd sit on the porch and talk to the kids like they were nieces and nephews, not strangers. Even Gary, the mailman, started lingering longer during deliveries, chatting about his tomatoes and war stories. "Looks like you got a family here, Walt," he said one morning, slapping my shoulder. I looked around, someone watering plants, someone reading on the porch swing, someone laughing in the kitchen. "Yeah," I said. "I guess I do. I still think about Ellie. Not with anger anymore. Just a soft ache. A distant kind of grief. I don't know if she tells people I'm gone. Or if she's just pretending none of it happened. Maybe she regrets it. Maybe she doesn't. But the thing about family is, blood can betray you. And strangers can become home. I've found more love in the last few months than I have in years. Not the kind that expects things. Not the kind that comes with strings. Just love. Simple. Quiet. Steady. It was a Thursday afternoon, and the sky had that heavy gray look, like it couldn't decide whether to cry or hold itself together. I was in the garden, trimming back the lavender bush, when I heard a car pull up the drive. Not Joyce's. Not Sylvia's. Not the postman. I turned slowly, heart already tightening. It was Ellie. Same silver SUV. Same tense posture behind the wheel. She sat there for a few moments before stepping out. No sunglasses, no designer bag this time. Just a plain cardigan, flats, and that same anxious fidget I remembered from when she was a little girl about to admit she broke something. I wiped my hands on my jeans and stood. We stared at each other for a moment. The wind kicked up softly, stirring the petals around our feet. "Hi, Dad," she said, voice quieter than I remembered. "Ellie." She glanced around, at the porch, the garden, the mural by the front window. "So, this is what you've been doing." I nodded. "Marjorie's house. We've got 4 residents now. Might take in 2 more by winter." She looked down at her hands, fiddling with her ring. "I heard about it. From Lily. Figured. She's been spending a lot of time here." "Yeah," I said. "She fits in." That stung her, I could tell. She cleared her throat. "I didn't come to argue." "Good," I said simply. She hesitated, then walked a few steps closer. "I watched the fundraiser video," she admitted. "Someone from Nathan's office showed it to me." I didn't respond. "I didn't know you'd go that far." "You didn't think I'd stand up," I corrected. She flinched. I didn't think you'd cut us off like that." "You already had," I said. "You just weren't honest about it." Silence. The wind blew again. A screen door creaked softly. "I came to say I'm sorry," she said finally, voice shaking. "Not just about the hospital, or the voicemail. All of it. I wasn't there. I wasn't kind. And I let Nathan talk me into things I shouldn't have." I watched her carefully. She looked older. Not in years, but in weight. Like the guilt had finally started catching up. "I thought I was protecting my family," she said, eyes watering. "But I forgot who made me family in the first place." That line stayed in the air for a long while. I took a slow breath. "I don't hate you, Ellie." Her head snapped up. "I never could," I continued. "But I also can't pretend things didn't happen. I can't unhear the things you said. I can't forget being left in that hospital like I didn't matter. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them. I was scared, she whispered. Of losing control. Of being left with the weight of everything. Nathan said. This isn't about Nathan, I interrupted gently. This is about choices. Yours. She nodded, slowly. I stepped closer, just a little. I raised you to be strong, I said. But I didn't raise you to be cruel. She covered her mouth with one hand, sobbing silently. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said, voice cracking. I didn't want to go another day without telling you I know I failed you. I nodded. That was the truth. She had. But she'd also shown up. Without anyone telling her to. Without a demand or an excuse. Just the truth. And that counted for something. I'm proud of what you're doing here, she added. I don't expect to be part of it. But I wanted you to know. We stood there in the breeze, the sound of someone laughing faintly inside. Maybe Jade, maybe Tessa. I wasn't sure. You don't have to leave, I said quietly. But you also don't get to come back like nothing happened. I understand, she said. She turned to go, but paused. Lily's proud of you, you know, she said. She said this place makes her feel safe again. I swallowed hard. She's got a good heart. She gets that from Mom, she said. I didn't argue. As she walked back to her car, I called after her. You're welcome to visit. One day. Not as my daughter. But as someone who wants to help. She nodded. That's fair. Then she got in her car and drove away. I stood there long after the dust had settled. Did it fix everything? No. But it didn't have to. Sometimes the most honest thing a person can do is show up late, say they were wrong, and leave with grace. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do, is let them go without hate. Speech balloon, would you have forgiven her? Let us know in the comments. We held the dedication ceremony on the first clear Saturday in October. The trees were starting to turn, deep reds, warm ambers, and the breeze carried the kind of chill that made you reach for a sweater but still sit outside a little longer just to feel it. We set up folding chairs across the lawn, strung up borrowed string lights along the fence, and laid out a long table covered in pies, cornbread, baked macaroni, and a sheet cake that read, "Welcome home, Marjorie's house." By noon, the yard was full. Neighbors, volunteers, a few folks from town hall, and all the residents, dressed in their Sunday best, nervous but smiling. Sylvia stood near the front steps with a clipboard in one hand and a camera in the other, eyes glistening as she looked around. "This is more than I imagined," she whispered. I just nodded. Because honestly, I couldn't speak. Not yet. Lily stood next to me, holding a framed photo of Marjorie, the one where she's in the garden, sun hat on, smiling like the world was still wide open. We set it on a small wooden pedestal right by the porch. Then it was time. Sylvia welcomed everyone, gave a brief speech about the mission, about giving young adults a place to feel rooted while they found their footing. Then she handed me the mic. I stepped up onto the porch, the steps creaking softly beneath my boots. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I'll keep this short. Most of you know me. Some of you probably wondered what this old man was up to the last few months." Polite laughter. "I built this house with my wife, Marjorie, over 40 years ago. We raised our daughter here. We buried a dog in that yard. We patched that roof more times than I can count." I paused, looking around the crowd, and then back at the house. But somewhere along the way, life got quiet. People I thought would stay, didn't. And for a while, I let the house feel like a burden. Like a place filled with memories I couldn't carry alone. I looked at Lily. But then someone reminded me that this home was never meant to be a shrine. It was meant to breathe. To hold people. To shelter, comfort, and lift. I pointed to the porch. This house has seen joy. It's seen pain. But starting today, it sees purpose again. A soft cheer broke out, followed by clapping. I lifted the mic one last time. And Marjorie, if you can hear me, this is still your home. And now it belongs to everyone who needs one. I stepped down, tears stinging my eyes. Lily hugged me tight. You did it, Grandpa, she whispered. No, I said. We did. After the ceremony, people toured the house. The kids showed off their rooms, the mural, the new reading nook we'd built in the den. Someone brought a guitar. Aaron sang a song he wrote himself. Tessa read a poem. Joyce danced in the grass with one of the volunteers like she hadn't aged a day. It wasn't just a home anymore. It was a heartbeat. Later that evening, when everyone had gone and the sun had slipped low, I stood alone in the kitchen. The windows were fogged from the warmth of the oven still cooling, and the room smelled like cinnamon and soap. I poured myself a glass of sweet tea and walked out to the porch. Marjorie's photo was still there. I sat beside it. Today was good, I said. You would have made too much potato salad, and you'd be worrying if the forks were clean enough, but you would have loved every second of it. A breeze rustled the wind chimes. I looked out over the lawn, where the lights still twinkled. Where laughter had lived just hours ago. I miss you, I said softly. But I think I finally figured out how to keep you close. Inside, I heard footsteps. Tessa. Hey, Walt, she said gently. We're making popcorn. Movie night? I smiled. What's on? Something black and white, she groaned. Aaron picked it. Says it's a classic. Sounds like a fine choice. She grinned. You coming? In a minute. She nodded and went back inside. I sat for just one moment longer. Letting it all soak in. The forgiveness. The healing. The house that lived again. And then I stood up, patted Marjorie's photo, and walked inside to join my family. My real one. The one I chose, and who chose me back.